And so it's a very vulnerable scene to shoot for me as an actress, but then also for her as a character, because she's not someone who lets anybody see her vulnerability. She's always covering it up. So we shot that a handful of times, and we attempted to shoot it over the course of, maybe it was like 3 days or something like that, but something always happened, like the lighting wasn't right, or there's something was wrong with the snow or the windshield wiper. And so it was like so much was just building up to that scene for me as well, because I would emotionally prepare every morning and then get to set and I was like, okay, ready to shoot it, and then it didn't happen. And Yura Borisov, who plays Igor in the film and is so incredible, he was there to really like comfort me. And when you look into his eyes, his soulful eyes, like you immediately are transported to this very like vulnerable place. So yeah, I'm lucky that I was able to do the scene with him. And Sean was just in the backseat of the car the whole time.
Right in the fourth wall there.
He was pulling the seat back when it leans back. He was the one who was pulling it back.
Because that car is so old, it didn't even work, and so I had to be the one that pulled it down. But yeah, it was a very stressful scene to shoot because we knew we had to get it right. For me, endings are the most important part of cinema storytelling. And this was something we had in mind from the very beginning. It was in the treatment, actually, before we wrote the screenplay. So, and there were lots of moving parts, as Mikey said, lots of technical stuff going on, technical cues, but then also emotional cues, and yeah, very, very stressful. Nights of Cabiria, the Fellini film, is a big influence on this movie. And I don't know if you've seen the film, I'm sorry, spoiler alert here. She has a single tear at the very end. Julieta has this one single tear at the very end. And I remember the tape that we used in the film, I was in the back seat, and when I started to hear Mikey cry, I looked up and over to see if there were tears coming, and it was that one single tear. And I was like, oh my God. It was an unintentional nod to one of the films that inspired this film through her amazing performance. But I think then in hindsight, I realized I did a lot of subconscious rip-offs of 80s comedies. I had no idea how close we came to Coming to America, Pretty Woman, that's 1990, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
What did you think of Annie when you first read the script?
Well, I had been thinking about her for a long time, since meeting Sean and being pitched the initial idea, and we were talking quite a bit, but there were so many questions I had about her and her life, and so once I finally was able to read the script, a lot of the gaps were filled in, but I also recognized how different of a person she is than me. She's very, very far away from home, and there's so much about her life that is very foreign to me. And so immediately I recognized that. I recognized her immense, huge fighting spirit, also her hopefulness, her scrappiness. These were all things that I was very drawn in by and really wanted to highlight in her as a character. So I immediately buckled down and started all of the preparation that I felt I needed to do for her, because we were so different.
What do you think she wants from Vanya?
Well, I think it evolves a bit over time, but initially I think he's a customer. He's a client of hers, and so I think she wants to nurture that relationship because she sees him as someone, a relationship that could be very profitable. But I think as time goes on, she becomes very intrigued by him. I think she's charmed by him. I think that his sort of like youthfulness and innocence, in a sense, kind of disarms her, and I think she's interested in that. She's completely fallen in love and seduced by his lifestyle, which is like a dream life to her. One where he gets to party 24/7, lives very comfortably, has all this adventure and fun in his life. And so I think that that's what she wants, and she's welcomed into that world so openly at first. And so I think to her, she sees it as this sort of fairy tale ending for her, this incredible opportunity where maybe love will follow afterwards. but I think that she's definitely drawn in by his exuberant lifestyle.
Mikey and I talked a lot about that, about where she was when the proposal happens and whether she's in love or not. And no, she's not in love. They've just been together a week. But I think that Annie sees that love is 100% possible with this guy. And why not take this chance? Why not take this ride with him? I've read some reviews that people see her as just a gold digger, and I think that is not in any way true. This is how I always see it. I see it as if somebody came into my life and said, I want to make a film about you, a fictionalized version of your life. I would want them to do it respectfully and responsibly, and I would want, I would hope that the representation was correct. And that's really how I just approached this one. This one came about in a very, this film actually started almost 15 years ago and had nothing to do with sex work at the time. It was Karin Karabulian, who plays Toros in the film. We were just throwing this idea around about just trying to tell a story somewhere in Brighton Beach, Coney Island, because of the Russian community and his Russian-American community and his ties to that community. He's Armenian-American, and when he came over in 1990, he basically landed in Brighton Beach, and he was selling caviar on the corners of Brighton Beach Boulevard in order just to pay rent. And he's married to a Russian-American, Lana, who plays his wife in the film, in the church scene. And so he has a lot of stories from that world, and we were trying for a very long time just to figure it out. And it took all this time, 15, 17 years later, I applied this story of Annie to that world, and it all seemed to come together at the right time. So to answer your question, I don't know exactly how it fits in. It's just one other story I wanted to tell. It's and it happened in a very organic way. It came about in an organic way.
There were so many scenes I loved shooting for different reasons. I think shooting some of the more like hybrid guerrilla style scenes where we would go out into, like for example in Vegas we went, what's that street called? Fremont Street, and just filmed there, and that is like so exhilarating to do something like that. And so it's such an interesting experiment as an actor to bring your character into the real world like that. And we implicated that kind of style with a handful of different scenes, some of them in Brighton Beach and walking into restaurants, into pool halls. That was very exciting and fun for me.
For me, the most fun was the courtroom scene, because that was the day in which we realized, okay, we're going to take it to the next level in terms of allowing us to be a little more broad with the comedy at this moment. We were experimenting with tones here, and like we all kind of decided, without even really much discussion, that all the actors could take the performance and elevate it just a little bit to take us to a place where almost we're in sitcom level comedy. And it was okay, as long as we got back to grounded reality by the end of the film. I was okay with going to some of those places. So the way we shot it, essentially, was Drew Daniels, my amazing cinematographer. We were just in the back of that courtroom with the telephoto lens, and we just allowed the entire scene to play out from beginning to end. And it was like a comedy show. That was just like we did like 15 takes, and they were just different. They had different levels of how far we went. I mean, there was one take where Yura just takes a passed out Mark and throws him over his shoulder and marches out of the courtroom. I mean, we had insanity going on, and then it was up to me in the edit to really figure out where to land in terms of tone. But that was, for me, the funnest day.